Okay, live stream, please. Excellent. And good afternoon to everybody and everybody on YouTube. Welcome to this meeting. Before I formally start the meeting, I can confirm that this meeting is being held in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and the Licensing Act Hearing Regulations of 2005, which allow councils to make their own arrangements for licensing subcommittees to hear matters in connection with licensed premises. I will now go to each subcommittee member to confirm that they can hear and be heard. So if you could verbally confirm that you are able to hear me, and I will in response confirm that I can hear you. Where practicable, please have your video switched on so that you can be seen by other members in attendance and the public watching. First of all, Councillor Polly Andrews.
I can see and hear you, Chairman.
And you, Councillor Andrews, thank you. And secondly, Councillor Paul Andrews.
Good afternoon, Chair. Yes, I can see and hear you clearly.
And you, thank you, Councillor Andrews. You will note that we both have Councillor Andrews and Andrews here, both with the initial P, which makes life very interesting. So I will address them by their first name and second name when I call upon them to speak. I'd also like to request that the officers who will be present throughout the meeting can also confirm that they can hear and be heard. First of all, Caroline Marshall, Clerk to the Committee.
Yes, Chair, I can see and hear you.
And you, Caroline, good afternoon. Alice McAlpine, Legal Advisor to the Committee.
I can see and hear you, Chair.
And good afternoon to you, Alice. And Jenny Priest, who's Technical Support for this afternoon.
Yes, Chair, I can hear and see you.
Yeah, and you, good afternoon, Jenny. I would like to welcome everyone to today's meeting. The Council is video and audio streaming this meeting live on the internet and making a recording. This recording forms part of the public record of the meeting and will be available on the Council's website. Please note that it is the Council's preference that where you are able to do so, you have your video switched on. Please remember that what you do and say in this meeting has a global reach and your words and actions should be chosen carefully. Can I also remind members to ensure they are wearing their headsets while listening and speaking during the meeting? This will ensure that the audio quality is of the highest possible quality and the background noise is significantly reduced. There are some additional points for members and officers to be aware of. As a part of our meeting etiquette, all microphones apart from mine will be placed on mute at the start and during the meeting. I will run through the agenda in the customary way. When you wish to speak, please use the virtual hand that's available on your desktop, usually somewhere at the bottom under reactions or on the right-hand side if you're using an earlier version of Zoom. Please remember to unmute yourself to speak and mute yourself again when you have finished. Please do not raise your physical hand as I do not want to miss anyone who may wish to speak. Please note that the chat facility has been switched off to ensure that members' contributions can be offered through the spoken voice and for the public record. Please ensure all mobile devices are switched off to prevent interference with the audio and video systems. If any attendee loses connection, the meeting will be paused to ascertain if the connection can be restored quickly. If that is not possible, to recover the connection within a reasonable amount of time, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum of committee members remains able to hear and proceedings can be heard. If you plan to leave before the end of the meeting, please can you indicate this in advance? Are there any questions from anyone on those points before we continue? No? Excellent. Thank you. Okay, I will now formally open the meeting. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence.
There are no apologies for absence, Chair.
Thank you, Caroline. As we have a full house of members, there are no named substitutes. Item 3 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Are there any Schedule 1, Schedule 2 or other interests to be declared for items on the agenda today? Could you please do this by raising your virtual hand, and I will then ask you to speak to notify the meeting of which item you have an interest and the nature of that interest. Are there any declarations of interest from Councillor Andrews or Councillor Andrews? Polly or Paul. Okay, before I move to the first substantive item on the agenda, could I please ask Democratic Services to move the public representatives for the Izzy Cafe, which is the second application this afternoon, into the waiting room, please?
Chair, that has been done if you want to continue.
Thank you very much. I was waiting for confirmation. Thank you, Jen. So we move to the item 4, which is the application to grant for a premises license in respect of Shires Park, Ullingswick, Herefordshire, HR 13JE, the Licensing Act 2003. The subcommittee started to hear this application on the 21st of April 2001, and it was adjourned for a site visit to take, which took place on the 7th of May 2021. A supplement was also issued on the 17th of May with respect to the withdrawal of the representation by Environmental Protection. So this afternoon we have an order of speakers. We have Emma Bowell, who is speaking on behalf of the Licensing Authority. We have from the Environmental Protection team, Chung Se and Elizabeth Lachlan, who was masquerading as somebody else earlier on, but I think we've got the right name now. And public representations from Chris Hardman, Dr. C.D. Smith, Clerk to Bodnam Parish Council, Anne Hartfield and Daphne Ellis. And I think you're all here. Is Mrs. Ellis here? Yes, you are. And then from Mrs. Diane Thomas, who is the applicant, and Mr. Nick Samper, who is her agent. So I want to hand over to Emma to give the presentation on behalf of the Licensing Authority. Emma, please.
Thank you, Chair. As previously discussed, this is an application to consider the grant of a premise licence in respect of Shires Park and Ullingswick. Key considerations for this application is that the application for grant of a premise licence has received relevant representations and is therefore brought before the subcommittee for determination. Herefordshire Council's Statement of Licensing Policy 2020 to 2025 states all representation must be relevant. For example, they must be about the likely effect of the grant of the application. This followed paragraph 8.57 in the section 182 guidance, which uses the same wording. The details of the application are: the applicant is Diane Thomas, the agent is the licensing guys. The date received was the 12th of March 2021. The date of the end of consultation is the 13th of March 2021, and the consultation ended 28 days later on the 9th of April 2021. The application, which can be found at Appendix 1, requests the grant of a premise licence to allow the following licensable activities: live recorded music, indoors, and live music for indoors and outdoors, Sunday to Thursday 11 AM until 2300, and Friday to Saturday 11 AM until 2400. But it's our understanding that this has now been withdrawn from the application. Late night refreshment, indoors and outdoors, Friday to Saturday 11 PM until 1 AM. This is because late night refreshment is only licensable between the hours of 11 PM and 5 AM Monday to Sunday. Sale and supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, Sunday to Thursday 9 AM until 11 PM, and Friday to Saturday 9 AM until 1 AM. Non-standard timings are as follows: 11 AM until midnight, Valentine's Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, bank holidays, and Sundays preceding bank holidays. The proposed designated premise supervisor, also known as a DPS, Diane Elizabeth Thomas, has not been granted a personal licence by her local authority at the time of this report was produced. One representation has been received from Environmental Protection and can be found at Appendix 2, and they have objected outright to the application. This has since been withdrawn through the withdrawal of the live music and recorded music. 20 relevant representations have been received from members of the public in line with the licensing objective, prevention of public nuisance, that the licensing authority has been accepted as being relevant and can be found at Appendix 3. A number of the public representations that have been accepted as being relevant by the licensing authority under the Licensing Act of 2003, they have been accepted under that act and not under any other legislation, i.e. planning or highways, as this cannot be considered within the subcommittee today. A number relevant representations were received, again, like I said, to issue the highlighting of the traffic. As we cannot consider this under the Licensing Act, the applicant's agent produced a crash data document to address this issue, and that's Appendix 4. Following the end of the consultation period and in support of their objection, Environmental Protection produced an aerial map of the area for the committee. The red outlined area on the map highlights the proposed licence area, and the yellow circled areas highlights private dwellings and can be found at Appendix 5. Following discussions with Environmental Protection following the end of the consultation, the applicant's agent produced an updated plan of the premises to support the application. The agent advised during the previous committee meeting that all live and recorded music was to be removed and can be found at Appendix 6. The application was brought to committee on the 21st of April for determination, and the decision of that committee was to adjourn the meeting until the 17th of May at 14:30, which would allow for a site visit on the 7th of May. The reason for the site visit was due to the number of changes to be made to the application during the meeting and the need to understand the location of the premises to fully consider the points being made by all parties. All matters, including the right of appeal, are set out in this report. There are a number of legal implications available in this report, which your advisor can advise you further on. Again, I said there's a right of appeal, which is set out in this report. All responsible authorities and members of the public living within Herefordshire have been consulted, and appendices 1 to 5 can be found at the back of this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Emma. I'll now turn to members, Councillor Paul Andrews, Councillor Polly Andrews. Do you have any questions for our licensing team at this point? No. Okay. So I'll now turn to the Environmental Protection team. Chung Se and Elizabeth Loughlin. I don't know who wants to go first.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Because of the reduction of the regulated entertainment hours, we propose the withdrawal of our previous representation. So we have nothing further to add. However, we do want to point it out that any nuisance arise from the premises could still be investigated under the Environmental Protection Act 1990, where the license holder of the premises license has a duty to ensure all activity carried out on the premises does not constitute a statutory nuisance as described under Section 79 of the Environmental Protection Act 1990. I just want to point that out, but other than that, I've got no further comments to make. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chung Se. Elizabeth, anything further to add?
No, Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I now turn to public representations. Mr. Hardman, I have first on my list.
Mr. Hardman doesn't appear to have joined the call, Chair.
Dr. Smith, who is the clerk to Bodnam Parish Council.
Again, Dr. Smith doesn't appear to have joined the meeting.
Okay, so I know we have, is it Hatfield or Hartfield?
Hartfield, Chair.
So we got that first. So Mr. Hartfield, if you'd like to make any representations, please. She was here earlier.
She is still here, Chair. She's just on mute at the moment.
Ah, yes, I can see her now. And appears to have frozen. It might be due to looking at the storm I'm looking at out of my window. It's probably over Bodnam now, somewhere. Mrs. Hartfield, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Could you like to make your representations now, please?
Yes. Do you wish me to read out my letter?
Yes, please.
We were concerned about the access on the 417, the noise level which can be heard. We are about a mile away from the site, and the noise for any music, which I know now has been withdrawn. There are several places in the area which sell food and alcohol, public houses, garages and that, so we didn't see any reason why they should have it at the site. Car parking could be a problem if it's used for music. There's a general aged population who are in the Bodnam area and in here to retire. for peace and quiet. And I strongly oppose these applications for the music and the alcohol licence, but I wouldn't object to a 5-van caravan site. Right?
Okay, thank you,
That is
Mrs.
what our problem is.
Thank you. Mrs. Ellis. Mrs. Ellis, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, right. I apologise that I haven't got my letter to hand that I sent in originally, but I have got something written down here, which is sort of representing Mr. Austin's views also. Is that in order?
Please carry on.
Although the music has been withdrawn from this application, it still appears that this is not going to be a normal campsite. We therefore ask your decision will take into account the implications that granting such a licence could have, and that you give close supervision to any future developments and see that they do not breach planning and environmental laws, thus causing potential nuisance and inconvenience for the residents in this quiet and peaceful location. And this is why most of us live here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ellis. Are there any questions for the public representations from either Councillor Paul Andrews, Councillor Polly Andrews? Any questions? No, okay. So Mrs. Thomas, and Mr. Samper as the applicant and the applicant's agent.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Samper. I am well, thank you. And you?
Good. Yeah, I'm fantastic. Good afternoon, everybody. If it's okay, I'll start. And if you have any questions for Diane at the other end, I'm sure we'll be pleased to field them. So good afternoon, everybody. We have greatly enjoyed being able to welcome the licensing subcommittee to the Shires last week so that you could have a good look around the site. We have shown the substantially built yet small clubhouse, which is both well insulated and double glazed. We have shown the camping field and where it lies in respect of any neighbouring land and properties. You'll be aware that at the last hearing, we withdrew any request for licensable entertainment at the site. All that remains is the sale and supply of alcohol by retail. Following our removal of any request for live and recorded music within this application, the EHO representation is effectively over. And we find that in our bundle this afternoon that they have withdrawn completely from the field. So we've explained at the last hearing, and I don't want to bore you, but you know, if you need any of it reiterated, revisited or repeated, we're here to assist, obviously. But we've explained we're not a pub or a club, and therefore there will be no passing trade. We've addressed you at length at the last hearing on the relevance of the public observations about the likelihood of drink driving, antisocial behaviour, and risks around child protection on the site, and how no responsible authority charged with championing these licensing objectives has raised any issue with the application as submitted. So we come back to where we started, really. We are good neighbours. We have no intention to start an alternative to Glastonbury or the Big Chill on this site. We never did, and it's technically impossible anyway due to the tiny size of the plot. The site visit would have established that beyond any doubt in any event. But because we are good neighbours, we reflected upon the baseless but heartfelt concerns of persons living in the Bodnam area, and therefore we withdrew our request for all licensable activities anyway. We've heard from two public representatives today, and again, we know what they're saying. I can explain it to you if you like, but access to the A417, that's not a licensable activity, that's a planning matter. The noise, that's been withdrawn. No need for another because there are other places licensed in the area. That's not a valid representation according to the statutory guidance. Car parking, again, that's a planning matter. And then there is, we note Mrs. Ellis saying, although music has been withdrawn, this is not a normal campsite. With respect, I venture to suggest it is. And she also opines about any inconvenience and nuisance to any residents. can I just reassure everybody that we have no intention of causing any inconvenience or any nuisance to anyone, let alone our near and far residents. Okay, so unless we can help the committee any further, Mr. Chair, we finish by respectfully urging you to grant this modest application at this little campsite, and I'm sure we all wish this venture all the very best of luck going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Samper. Anything, Ms. Thomas, to add? Okay, any questions from Councillor Paul Andrews, Councillor Polly Andrews at this stage?
Yes.
Councillor Polly Andrews.
Thank you. Could you give me some estimate of just how many caravans? I know it's a small site, but what would be perhaps the maximum occupancy in the number of caravans that this site could accommodate?
Right, that's a really good question. We don't rightly know because a planning application hasn't been made yet. You'll remember at the last hearing I explained we were going to start off with camping, and a campsite like that site is perfectly permissible for 26 days a year, now lifted to 52 because of the COVID regulations under the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development England Order of 2015 Schedule 2. So we're going to start with camping predominantly, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
And you'll note, members, that the site can have 5 caravans on the site without planning permission, as per the some of the Caravan Club guidance.
Yes.
As well, if that helps at all. Are there any other points, members? Okay, the subcommittee will now adjourn to discuss the application, and we'll return in, well, it's now just after 10 to 3. We'll return at 10 past 3. If there are any delays, Caroline will come back and tell you in the meantime. So we will all now adjourn to Welcome back, everybody. This licensing subcommittee is in session. Before I read the decision of the subcommittee, could subcommittee members please verbally confirm that you're able to hear, and I will in turn confirm I can hear you. Where practicable, please also have your video switched on so that you can be seen by other members in attendance and the public watching. Councillor Polly Andrews.
Yes, Chairman, I can see and hear you clearly.
And I can see and hear you, thank you. And Councillor Paul Andrews.
Yes, Chairman, I can see and hear you clearly.
And I can see and hear you, Councillor Andrews, plural. Okay, this is an interesting one. The licensing subcommittee has heard from the licensing authority in the environmental protection team, and we've also taken into consideration public representations, both written and those given orally today. And we've also heard from the applicant's agent, and we met the applicant at the site visit last week. We note that the applicant and the agent have both said at the time that they wish to be good neighbours, and I would urge you that consultation with your neighbours should continue locally as long as the site is operating. We also note that the majority of the objections are on highways and public nuisance grounds. So therefore, as the music application has been withdrawn, they are no longer relevant. As far as highways issues are concerned, it's not for this committee to decide on those, as the highways issues are covered by planning legislation, which will have to be heard at another time in another place. So therefore, it is the decision of this committee to grant the licence as it is being requested. but I would draw your attention to the comments made by Mr. Say regarding the environmental protection legislation. We would also remind the applicant that no alcohol may be sold until a designated premises supervisor is in place, and that is the decision of the committee. Thank you all. We'll have a 2-minute recess, and we will then admit the public representations from the next committee. I wish you all a good day for those, and thank you all for attending this afternoon for this application. We'll have a recess of 2 minutes. Jen, could you? Welcome back, everybody, from YouTube land. Our next application is to grant a premises license in respect of Izzy's Cafe, Wye Valley Visitor Centre at Simmons Yat, Ross-on-Wye, postcode HR96DA. This is heard under the Licensing Act 2003. We have representations from the Licensing Authority. I believe Mrs. Milne-Smith is unable to join us this afternoon. I'll address that after Mr. Spriggs has spoken, and then the applicant, Mr. John Brown. Welcome to all. So I think it's Mr. Spriggs. Fred, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Fred Spriggs. I'm Principal Licensing Officer for the local authority. As you say, this is an application for a premises licence in respect of Izzy's Cafe, Wye Valley Visitor Centre, Simmons Yat, Ross-on-Wye, HR96DA. The matter is that the application for the grant of the premises licence has received relevant representation and is therefore brought before the subcommittee for determination. The Herefordshire Council Statement of Licensing Policy 2025 states all representations must be relevant. For example, they must be about the likely effect of the grant on the application. This is followed paragraph 8.5 in the section 182 guidance, which uses the same wording. The applicant for this licence is Wye Valley Kitchens. It is a new grant. The application received on the 17th of March, 28-day consultation period started on the 18th of March, and the 28-day consultation period finished on the 14th of April. The application, which is shown at Appendix 1 within your papers, requests the grant of a premises licence during the hours shown, and that is for live recorded music, sale and supply of alcohol, Monday to Sunday, 10 a.m. until 2311 p.m. Now, under the Live Music Act 2012 as amended, an alcohol licensed premises can have live and or recorded music from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2311 o'clock at night for up to 500 people without the need for these premises to be licensed for that particular activity. There was one representation made by Environmental Health, which is at Appendix 2. No other representations from responsible authorities. You've got 5 relevant representations in relation to the prevention of public nuisance, which you will find at Appendix 3. There's 6 further public representations which were deemed not relevant. The applicant has agreed a proposed set of conditions, which you can find at Appendix 4. And the applicant also wrote to the 5 objectors concerning the application, which you'll find at Appendix 5. All matters with reference to the legal implications are set out in this report, and your legal advisor can advise you further on those. The right of appeal for all parties is to the Magistrates' Court within a period of 21 days of being notified of the decision. There has been an extensive consultation with all responsible authorities and members of the public living within Herefordshire. And as I've already mentioned, there are 5 appendices attached to this report, which you will find in your pack. That is the application, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spriggs. Are there any questions from Councillor Polly Andrews, Councillor Paul Andrews for Mr. Spriggs? Nope. Okay, we have had public representations from Victoria Milne-Smith. I understand that she is unable to attend this meeting today. Could I just confirm that she has made representations, Caroline?
Yes, Chair, they're contained within your pack.
Excellent. Okay, but she hasn't given any other written representations for today.
She did send in an email this morning which outlined that she may find it difficult to attend due to it being the second day of trading after the lifting of restrictions. I'm happy to read that email out, which outlines similar points to what have been made in her representation.
If you could, Caroline, I think that would be helpful for members.
Okay, Chair. So the additional points which she wishes to make are: 1, there are no emergency contact details in the conditions. Communication with the Wye Valley Visitor Centre out of trading hours has been extremely difficult over the last 15 years, so I know that it would not be an option if problems occur. It would be helpful to have a telephone contact in case of emergencies over at the centre, given it has never traded after 6 p.m. on the site. Point 2, within the requirement for signage asking for guests to respect the local residents, there is not requirement that there is safe dispersal away from the site managed by a human within 30-minute time between the end of the licensing hours 11 p.m. and the closure 11:30 p.m. There should be a condition that can be added to the proposed logbook requiring a DPS to check all guests have vacated the area and WC facilities and the Wye Valley Visitor Centre as a whole. Point number 3, there is no CCTV requirement to monitor issues on the large site, that is Wye Valley Visitors Centre. Those are the 3 points that she wished to make, and there is one final paragraph. Finally, I feel that although open provision is not an area that is looked at as part of the licensing objectives due to the huge over provision of licensed premises within this parish, it is the responsibility of Herefordshire Council and the licensing subcommittee to ensure that by granting the licence, there is no risk to increase in public nuisance, crime and disorder. Is the subcommittee absolutely certain that their decision will not add to our existing problem in this area?
Okay. Mr. Spriggs, are there any records of public disorder, public nuisance in the immediate area?
Not that I'm aware of, Chair. I would also say that the application went to the police. The police could have made representation on the grounds of crime and disorder and chose not to do so.
Right, thank you for that. Any further questions from Councillor Polly Andrews, Councillor Paul Andrews on those points? No. Okay, Mr. Brown. Oh, sorry, Polly.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I suspect that probably Mr. Brown is probably going to answer some of the points that I would like to make, so I'll listen to him first.
That's good. Okay, thank you. Right, Mr. Brown, if you could make your representations, please. You're on mute at the moment.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
That's good, thank you.
First of all, my apologies. I'm actually in a works caravan while work is being done at the site, and it's raining hard. So hopefully the rain won't interfere, and hopefully you can hear me go. Most of the points that I would like to address, I did put in a letter to the people that had fears, shall we say. One thing I will point out straight away is everything seems to emanate from the old Court Hotel business, which is directly opposite us. It does seem, rightly so, that they're afraid of late night partying, debauchery, noise, and all that kind of thing. I did try and point out to them that we're a daytime business primarily. We're closed by 6 o'clock. All the site facilities closed down at the same time, including the toilets, which means we would have to empty the site. The late night request was mainly for things like bank holiday weekends and things in the summer if we are asked to host functions, which is something we've never been able to do before. We are certainly not going to be opening a late night drinking establishment. I was in the pub trade for 35 years and that's the last thing I want to do. But it does mean that we can not lose as many customers as we have been over the last few years, because people are simply used to going somewhere and being able to have things together with their children. Pubs, for example, now sell children's menus and soft drinks and tea and coffee, and I see no reason why a cafe like ours can't be licensed to give the members of the family a glass of wine or a bottle of beer if they want to have it. It seems unfair that all the objections are coming from the establishment across the road, which does exactly the same things that we're trying to do, to the point of advertising tea and coffee outside their premises. All we want really is a level playing field so that the hours we are open, which is seasonal from March until September, just to stop losing customers and give everyone a fair choice. The other point I would make about our business is we for many years have made our own ice cream, and the alcoholic content of ice cream falls above the legal limit to sell it without a license. Obviously we don't sell it to children and we have big signs saying over 18s, but it does mean that we can't actually at the moment, even though we make it and we sell it wholesale, we can't sell it through our premises without the license, nor can we sell it in a cone or a tub as a takeaway because it technically contains alcohol. So that's my opening statement and the rain seems to have stopped. So
that's good news, if nothing else. Yes, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Polly Andrews, Councillor Paul Andrews.
Oh, God. Sorry, endless problem. Endless Zoom system this afternoon. Yes, could I just clarify? You're mostly going to still close at 6 o'clock, are you, Mr. Brown? But you just want a license so that if you are asked to stay open for a function, you can do so.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Your main will still be closing at 6.
Yeah, it's a seasonal business, and most of the trade comes from families or during the school holidays. You know, in the winter there is really not much trade to be had. So, for a start, we'd be shut 3 or 4 months of the year, and again in the winter there'd be no call for people to come and sit outside in a big garden and drink. So, yeah, basically all our trade is between Easter and pretty much October. Yeah. It's just something that we'd have there. If we were asked to do a private function, for instance, in the middle of January, we've now got a brand new built double glazed building where we can keep the noise in, and we could do that for people, but it certainly wouldn't be outside or anything like that. No.
It really wouldn't be part of your core activity.
No, it would be a bonus in the quiet season, basically.
Yes, yes. Thank you. And you want a license so that parents who are sitting there could have a glass of wine while their children are having a can of Coke, presumably.
Exactly. Sometimes we lose customers because there's often one of the family that wants to drink and they'll go elsewhere and we lose the whole family. And I think it'd be nice just to try and offer them that choice so that we can keep them on the premises, and the rest of the site benefits as well.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. Paul, anything?
Oh, it's just in Mr. Brown, in your food, when you're a calf, do you do sort of wholesome full meals as well? Do you, or is it basically ice creams, cakes, tea, that kind of thing?
Good
I know
question.
it sounds daft.
No, it's a very good question. It's a very valid question. When we took the premises over, it didn't even have a catering kitchen. It was just a home sink and a home cooker, and it was run as a tea room. Basically, we've spent a lot of money getting it upgraded with environmental help, and it's now a fully functional catering kitchen, which we do fully cooked meals. One of our biggest sellers, for instance, is, I know it's not sort of a la carte, but fish and chips is one of the biggest sellers. We do a lot of pies and things and stuff. Also a big range of pizzas, paninis. It's fast food, because it has to be, because people are in and out very quickly. But we've certainly got away from the cup of tea and a cake. It is now a fully functioning A3 catering kitchen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Anything else from anybody? Okay, we will adjourn to consider the decision on this. It is now 3:30. We will recommence at 3:45, 15:45 hours. We heard. Councillor Polly Andrews.
Chairman, I can hear and see you.
And I can hear and see you, Councillor Andrews. Thank you. And Councillor Paul Andrews.
Yes, Chairman, I can hear and see you clearly.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor Paul Andrews. I can see and hear you too. Okay, the decision runs as this. The committee has heard from the licensing authority written public representations which were as an appendix to our reports, and the applicant. And we note that conditions have been agreed with the licensing authority, but I'll come on to some 2 additionals later. The decision of the committee is to grant the license as requested with 2 additional conditions. First one is that a contact telephone number should be available on the premises at all times. And secondly, that on all occasions, the premises should be cleared by 23:30 hours. We note that the applicant has communicated with the people who have made representations about this application, and I urge you, Mr. Brown, that should continue for as long as you continue to operate in the environment you're in, and wish you the best of luck. That concludes